Cool. All right, we'll start with that. So the first and most obvious thing is I am not Roy. So for anybody who's here to see Roy Ellis, I apologize, right, that you get to listen to me talk for a little bit. Roy had an engagement that he could not get out of, so he sent me in his stead. So I've had a few days to look at these slides and work on this presentation, get familiarized with it. If there's a bright side to the universe, I'm very familiar with PAS and PAS monitoring. So I might not have the same flow or the same savvy that Roy does, but I will do my level best not to disappoint. So hopefully you can follow along with me here and we'll dive right in. And by the way, we're talking about monitoring for your PASOE applications. Now's a good time if this isn't what you're interested in. Now might be a good time to take a walk. All the different styles of monitoring that we can do with PAS, we're going to have a quick little peek at all the different ways that we can get at these things and all the different ways that PAS can report back what is it that's going on under the hood. Am I getting the times I want? Am I getting the response values that I want? How much memory is being used by what? Now, one of the interesting things here also is anything that's in here that's 12.8. I've only just started using 12.8 personally. Most of my clientele run on 12.2. So I've only started tinkering with the 12.8 bits. But there's not a lot here that's changed between 12.2 and 12.8. There are some new fancy bells and whistles in 12.8. I've tried them out during this week in the workshops. Anybody who's had a chance to sit with me through the workshops, there's some nice stuff in here that actually works. Everybody who's been to a Roy presentation knows this picture. Anybody familiar with this picture? This is Roy's pride and joy, right? This is his GTO. And for those of you who were in my workshops earlier this week, this is Roy's GTO, right? It's a hard top, right? Not that convertible thing that was on the beach in those other slides. But this is the classic way of monitoring your app server applications. ASBman-query, right? And all those stats that come out, that's about as far as you could get. That's about as far as the classic app server would let you go. With PAS being a more modern platform, there's more options for getting stats, getting introspection into what it's thinking and what it's feeling. It is the modern equivalent to what we were running before. Still gets us from A to B, still runs the same code, but it's a completely different platform. So if you've invested time in writing your management scripts around ASBman, NSman, WTBman, it's time to reinvest. And hopefully this time, don't wrap yourself around the infrastructure scripting that Progress presents, because we might change it, we might break it. A lot of these scripts sometimes come out and they've got, different line endings in them or different parts in it, and the script just doesn't work. But if you do or take a different approach, it will always work. So find an approach, A, that works for you, and try to find one that always works. So try to look for a solution in here that might fit your environment. A couple of the different ones up here that you might have seen before, OEJMX. And of course, the JMX part of that is just Java. I want to be able to talk to Java. I want to peer into Java's brain, and I want to see what he's thinking. I want to read his dreams. Now, the OE part, of course, is let's peer into that, and let's tell you what OpenEdge is doing from a Java perspective. So we can actually jump through the PAS Java JMX bridge, if you will, and we can actually ask the agents how much memory is being used, what's in memory. Of course, we have a REST API available to do the exact same thing, and this health scanner application that we can bolt on to your PAS instance, and it gives you a little bit of a health score. How healthy is your application is what the health scanner is for. So this lovely output. This is output from your ASB man -Q. Show me what's going on. Of all this lovely output, what's useful in here? Well, let's see. How many servers are currently running and how many of them are in use? Are there any that can't be used because they're locked? And if you do the math, 7 minus 1 minus 0 gives me 6 sitting there doing nothing. What else is good in here? How many clients have connected? What was the peak? I kind of like that one. That gives me a real good idea of max concurrency, max load that this app server has taken. I know that at any one point, I've had 21 clients connected to this one app server instance. Okay. And of course, we get some timings here. When requests come in, what was the longest running request? Longest time that somebody waited for an agent to be able to process his request? 100 milliseconds. That's not so bad. The average is working out to about 2. Well, I think those are pretty good numbers. How long do things run? Request duration, 1,200 milliseconds, 1.2 seconds, right? Check my math, I think so. That's not horrible, and the average being 30 milliseconds. Pretty darn quick. Now, I've said it a couple times. PAS is going to run your code as fast as your code has ever run, right? Just as fast. It's identical. We didn't code it to run slower. So for each runs as fast as for each ever has. But the overhead between Classic and PAS is different. We have an HTTP server now. Before we had a binary wire proprietary protocol where we're constantly holding that socket open. Now we're streaming across an HTTP boundary. Serialization, deserialization being what it is, you take a hit in that transfer, but it's not noticeable. You can calculate it, you can see it in the stats page, but you shouldn't feel it. If you feel it, something's wrong. If you notice it in seconds, in half of seconds, something's wrong. But if you notice it in, oh gosh, it's 10 milliseconds slower, okay, right? Really? Is that what we're talking about? We're subdividing sub-seconds now? Yeah, right? Okay, we're still dealing with classic monitoring here, and of the things that we're interested in, I've got, what is there, 6, 7, 8 agents up here, 8 ABL sessions, 8 agents running, waiting to be able to take requests. I have one that is in a busy state, means he's doing something. Somebody issued a request, click, let's say, run on app server, and meanwhile, every other one is sitting there idle. As we come across, I can see all the stats that say how many things have come in, how many things have gone out. The requests that come in, requests received. What's the difference between a request and a request received? That's interesting, right? I got a request, but I've also got a request. Huh. Okay. Are those numbers ever different? They look the same up there to me. All right. I've never really peered into that. Maybe I'll Google that later. I've also got some stats on that agent. When was the last time he started up? When was the last time he changed? What is a change to an agent? Could that be that maybe I've changed some of the settings underneath that you're allowed to change at runtime, and that's when the agent reread them, right? That actually is part of that. When that agent sees changes, sees differences in the configuration, this number on the far column gives you a hint that I reread the configuration at this time. Sometimes you might see that they haven't changed. Oh, that's why he's logging at the wrong level. If you ever run into that, this would be your tell, other than you're seeing bad values in your logs, but that would be your tell, oh, that's the guy. So maybe I'll just work to get rid of that one agent and deal with the rest. So at the end of the day, that is the extent of the information that Classic App Server gave you. Now, once we start into the modern configuration of PAS, the modern configuration, we start dealing with this JMX. JMX being the technology, right? Java, I'm going to basically connect to that Java process. I'm going to peer into his memory, and I'm going to ask him, tell me about that object that's in memory. Like, maybe it's Tomcat. I can connect to that Java memory. I can ask for the Catalina connector for HTTP, and then I'll ask him, tell me how many connections you've received, how many connections you've responded with. What other things up here? Yeah, so that's that fourth bullet, 1, 2, 3, 4, Tomcat supports it. PAS for OpenEdge also supports JMX, and of course, it's always on, it's always available. It's a Java-based technology. It's built into Java. One of the interesting things is that JMX does work remotely. A lot of the times when you talk about OpenEdge and PAS with JMX, it means you're going to have to be on that machine to be able to run that JMX query or that JMX command. In order to get into the memory of Java, you have to be on that machine. However, JMX does also work across the wire natively. You can communicate with it across the wire. But this is very, very, very powerful, right? I can get right in there and I can run anything I want inside of there. So if I manage to get through that authentication layer or something like that, the world is mine. I can now twist Java's brain and make it bend to my will. Yeah, everybody tracking? Stop me if you have any questions. Raise your hand, throw something light, please. All right, OEJMX, out of the box in your PAS instance folder, inside of the bin, right? So PAS instance, wherever you've created your instance, inside the bin you have this OEJMX.sh. Of course, if you're on Windows, you'll have a .bat. And what you should notice is that when you do an install, create an instance, you get both. Because PAS is just Java, so we provide both sets of scripts so that you can deploy it anywhere you want. The OEJMX scripts, the engineers have basically provided for you to assist. We've already got the Java beans, the Java intelligence inside of PAS that presents us with data that we're interested in. OpenEdge specific data. There's already all those other things, the Catalina, the HTTP connector, all those other low-hanging fruit inside of Java are already there. What we've provided is a way to assist you to figure out what OpenEdge is thinking, OEJMX. You can also use this tool to query all the standard things, all the Catalina things, all the Apache things, but it's meant for giving you an easy bridge to get in and ask, PAS, what is it doing about how much RAM or how many agents it's running? Upside news, it can only be run, the OEJMX scripts can only be run from the server where PAS is. What that means for you is you have to be able to SSH, hopefully SSH, not Telnet, right? Nobody Telnet's in here anymore. You're going to SSH onto the console, and you're going to run this OEJMX command, tell it to talk to that PAS instance and get your output. The second pro up there is actually very good. Depending on how I build my query that I send into PAS, I can bring out more than one metric at a time. So get me the maximum memory. Get me a list of all the applications running. Get me a list of all those applications agents. So I can bring back a lot of information at once. The downside, you get all that power, but it costs quite a bit. We have to spin up a JVM, right, an instance of Java, in order to do all this work. So it's a little bit expensive to spin it up. Notice the little sub-bullet here, should not be run in quick succession, because that much effort going into the Java brains kind of gets it confused or makes it do more work than it should be doing. It should be paying attention to doing PAS things. And of course, sometimes you might need to make several calls to gather the data that you want and reproduce those previous screens or those previous metrics. You might need to do several to get that same result. So you might need to go ping, bring it back, parse it, pull it apart. Okay, now I can go and get a list of what I need. So you're going to have to spin up, connect, bring back, parse, spin up, connect, and do work again. It gets very expensive very quickly, especially if you have to do it in rapid succession. But wait, Chad. No, moving, next slide. Okay, here we go. So this is an example of asking PAS JMX, let's see this one doing. The application called OE PAS1, give me those metrics. How many requests has he gotten? How many errors has he seen? And so if I put this into a file, notice the .qry, OEJMX, all right, and here's your query file, get sessions.qry, what does it return? Well, hey man, this script right here returned this lovely jumbled bit of output. Now it's formatted JSON, well pardon me, unformatted JSON. So what you get to do also is, oh nice, okay. Oh, yeah, I made it better. There we go. Run it through some flavor of a JSON formatter. Everybody's familiar with JQ. So you would do, hey, query PAS, and the output of that pipe to JQ, JQ being command line JSON parsing. Might give you an output similar to this. And now you can pick and choose what's useful on here. Do I have a pointer? Yeah. Oh, what do we like? I think we like green, right? Yeah, so how many requests has this application taken? What's the difference between reads and requests? Go ahead.
Do you need the OA manager to be installed on that password?
Okay, so a good question. Do I need the OE manager web app installed in order to do this? Anyone? Anyone? The short answer is no. I do not need the OpenEdge Manager web app in order to do this. This is JMX. So what that means is I'm going right inside the brains of Java and kicking off this query. What that should tell you is those Java beans, those servlet beans, if you will, are already there, regardless of OE Manager or not. OE Manager just gives you a doorway in. To answer the question? Is that all right? Ah, he's left already. Okay. So, yeah, he had one question and he left. So, I don't know what the difference between number of requests and number of reads are. What a write is. Maybe what I'm more interested in.
Packages?
Sorry, go ahead.
Are those network packages?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to read the manual, right, to know exactly what these are. What I'm more interested in is this number. How many times have things screwed up? Because that's all anybody really cares about, right? Did it screw up? How fast is it? Fast enough. If nobody's complaining, it's fast enough, right? But how bad is it? Because that's when you know, right? That's when the phone starts ringing, the emails start coming in, and there goes my weekend. Another interesting one is right here. This number of reserve. Basically, these timeouts are just as bad as errors. So this error is, gosh, my code broke. For each where blah, and it gives up the ghost. This timeout, this means that a request came in the door, and it waited, and if the defaults are left in place, which we all should know, do not use the defaults, they're always wrong, 18 seconds. So if this number goes up, that means that at least one person has waited 18 seconds to get an error. And if that goes up to 2, 3, 4, those are requests that have waited that default time of 18 seconds to get an error back to them. This next line here, this session waits, is how long any given request comes in before I can actually hand it off to an ABL session to be executed. It waits. And if it hits the timeout, it adds a counter to how long it waited, checkbox number 1, and if it actually ends up timing out, checkbox number 2, both of those will increment. If I see those going up, that's my smell test to say, time to add more sessions, time to add more agents, time to start scaling, because I want to do that before that starts. Because once those errors start, there goes my weekend. And as everybody who's been in my workshop knows, I like my sleep. So don't page me, don't email me. I'm going to make sure that this never happens, that these numbers never come off of 0 so that I can get my sleep. Everybody likes sleep, right? Nobody deploys on Friday. You don't deploy to prod on Friday, right? Right? No, we do that Tuesday. You know, Mondays for meetings. Tuesdays are for deployments. Yeah. Oh. So different output, different queries, of course, give you your different output. And as we said on the previous slides, even though you can group your queries in, sometimes the information that I send in doesn't give me back exactly and concisely what I want. So what I might need to do is do several different queries. But in this one, this is an easy one where again, it's back to just asking for the metrics from the OE PAS1 application. How many maximum concurrent clients have you had? 1. Whoa, heavy use, heavy use. What's the difference, maximum and concurrent connected clients? This is the real ones. These are the ones connected right now. These are the ones, my total count that I've had. Gosh, Chad, how do you know? It'd be nice if it said. Well, that's where the manual comes in, right? You got to go down, do the manual, figure out what each of these mean, and then figure out what they mean to you. There's our reads again, our write errors. Anything that says errors, I'm concerned. This is my smell. If I start seeing the weights go up, aha, I better start looking into why things are all of a sudden taking longer. Odds are, you just need to add another session or two. Or maybe add an agent with a couple sessions inside of it. There's a whole bunch of these, and they get awesome. All right, so there's some nice highlights showing the key sections if you didn't like the pointer effect. Again, notice, right, I've taken 10 requests, and I haven't had to wait for anything. So these 10 requests came in, were furnished with a ABL session, ran the code, and went about their happy day, right? Send some records back to the client. So now with this call, we'll ask for, get me the agents for OE PAS1. So there's potentially more than one application running inside of a single PAS instance. You can have more than one app server configuration underneath a PAS instance. So what we always do is we say, I want to do this with this application. Even if there's only one, you have to specify it. If there's more than one, then I can run this more than once or group them together, and I can get a list of all the agents from all the apps. But what this is, you get a key, right, a unique identifier for that agent, and you get the PID. Anywhere downstream from here, when you want to say, tell me more about that agent, you can use either of these. You can use the agent ID or the PID. Pick. The one I like to use the agent ID, if I can get it, because sometimes you might get a stale PID ID from a log file or a PID ID from a temporary file on disk. This should never be stale, but if you get in the habit of looking for the agent ID all the time, that should always be current. That should always be right now, that's an active agent ID. The problem with using PID files on disk or the log or wherever is you might get a false positive. You might say, oh, it's PID number 99, it's acting weird, go kill it. But when you go off to your process list, 99 is, oh, that's Apache, or it's some other process. You might get that false positive. But if you work on this agent ID, it's really tough to screw that up, because it doesn't mean anything to the operating system. And it's available. So now what we've done here is we've reproduced that availability column in the classic channel, right? On that classic ASB query. Hey, tell me which agents are available. And what I want to point out here is, even though I said get me agents plural for this one app, one record came back. So one agent, wow, classic had 5. I've got 1. Is that a common thing, you think, for PAS? Yeah, absolutely common, right? The difference between classic app server and PAS, as everybody should know by now. If you don't know, here it comes. Wait for it. Okay, here it comes. With classic app server, you had ABL sessions, call them 5 of them, right? 5 agents running. With PAS, One agent is multi-threaded or has multiple sessions inside of it. I think of them as threads. In reality, they are, but multi-sessions inside of one PAS agent. So before, you would start 5 or 10 agents to get 5 or 10 sessions. Now with PAS, you start one agent and get 5 or 10 sessions as threads inside of that agent. So seeing one agent back from that query, that's a good thing. We like that. What are we looking at here? Get me some session metrics for 1692. So go to the agent, find the agent with PID 1692, and tell me everything that is of interest in there. And by the way, that 1692, right, is the PID from here, but you could put in the agent ID also. They both work in that query. All right, so inside of that one agent, that one executable, there's 2 sessions in there available. One is idle. His name is session 4. The other one is active, so idle. One is active and doing something, and his name or identifier is session 7. Now, don't get worked up. There might be sessions, there might be lots of them here. The default settings inside of PAS 12.8 is 200 sessions. But initially, when you first start that single agent, the default setting is 5 sessions, but it will spin up to 200. But we'll start with 5. So you might go, show me how many sessions are inside that one agent. You'll get 5 here. That's very, very, very common right after starting. Now, session ID 4, 7, these will be out of sequence. There's a couple reasons for that. Sometimes they get cleaned up or reaped. Other times they crash. That happens. Or you've ever put a quit into your code, right? Quit is going to act differently on PAS. It's going to kill that session thread, and PAS is going to have to spin up another one. Right, so that session ID might change. Why doesn't it start at 1? Well, there's actually some threads and some sessions in there that aren't ours to use, that aren't user-based to use. There's administration threads in there. We always keep a couple around just so we can still get at PAS should the worst happen. We still want to be able to control it. All right, so what else? Agent metrics. How much memory? These, going to say, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Going to say these are bytes, right? So there's a kilobyte, 361 megabytes. Going to use that number. We'll stick with that. Bytes. And so this guy here he's idle. He's sitting there consuming so much RAM. This guy here is sitting there consuming so much RAM. What this should mean to you is, in classic days, I had session 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I could go off and do a PS and see all that memory that's being consumed for each individual PID. What you're going to end up with now is you're going to have that one PID with all of these sessions eating up all of this RAM inside of that one PID. What that's going to manifest like, number one, you're going to do a PS or top or HTOP, show me the RAM that's being used, and your PAS RAM is going to be massive. You're not going to be used to that, right? Because back in the old days, in the classic days, underscore pro APSV, those numbers were small, but it was spread across 5, 10, 50 agents, 50 sessions. Now they're all bundled into one PID, so it looks bigger. It's not bigger, it's just all in one. But what you do want to be mindful of is, now that it's one PID, look at the operating system. From his point of view, I used to have a PID that has memory limits. I used to have another PID that has memory limits and file handles and all those things. Well, now from an operating system point of view, I have to be mindful that that one PID, I now have to do context management for that one PID, thread management for that one PID, memory management and limitation for that one PID. Right? Think about out-of-memory killer in Linux. Per PID, per process, out-of-memory killers. Be careful, right? Don't let it get too big. Chad, what is too big? let's give it a general rule of thumb. I start my PAS 12.8, up comes one agent with 5 sessions in it. If that says, and I'm just going to throw numbers out, if that says 400, 500, I don't even blink an eye. 400 megabytes, don't even blink an eye. If I start hitting it with just simple hello world or ping commands, and maybe it balloons up to 700 megabytes, not concerned. If I start throwing leak-type testing apps at it, or if I try testing my app against it, and all of a sudden it goes from, I went from 400 or 500 to 700, not a problem, but now I'm into gigabytes. If it's single numbers of gigabytes, 1 and 2, I'm not concerned as long as it didn't happen too quickly. But as soon as it goes double digits or hockey sticks, now I'm concerned. So one of the things you want to watch is not only memory consumption, but memory growth over time. Did it happen quickly? Or did it happen slowly? Either way, it might be a concern for you. And of interest, if there's any room for jello, if your code isn't perfect, PAS is going to teach you a lesson. He's going to show you that your code isn't perfect. But the sales team said that it's going to run. Yes, they did. It didn't say it's going to run well, right? It's going to run. It's going to do just like it did before. 4H is going to be as fast as it was. But if you're not zeroing out your mem pointers properly, if you're not using finally blocks and deleting your handles and things like that, you're going to be humbled in a hurry, right? Ta-da. And it's going to manifest itself inside of that one PID. It's going to be that single digits of gigabytes, maybe not concerned, but I'm going to keep an eye on it. As soon as it gets to double digits, time to start thinking about the next step. What's that next step, you think? What should I do when PAS agents start using up too much memory?
If it's one session or all sessions.
Right? Is it one session in there, all sessions in there? Should I go in and kill just that one session, those 2 sessions that are growing? But that's my application code. Does PAS have a memory leak? No. It's not PAS's fault. So fix your code, it's horrible. Right? Fix your code, it's horrible. Right? Yeah, oh, my code's perfect. Yeah, really? Run it under PAS, let's find out. Right? I'll take the Pepsi challenge. Right? Everybody knows the Pepsi challenge, right? Let's put your code up against anybody else's, and let's watch the memory growth. You're not perfect. Nobody is. But if you have any room for jello, PAS is going to show you. What do we got up here now? Number of agent requests. So now I've said, yeah, let's talk about that agent, and tell me about the requests he's getting. The thing about these requests is depending on the style of request, is it coming in through the web transport, the REST transport, the app server transport? There might be nothing here. It might be empty. Sometimes you got to catch them in flight before this returns. They do hang around for a couple minutes. I have seen them stick around to where, oh, I can actually report on these and get the values back. What I think they're actually highlighted here. I can stop using this thing. Yeah, right there, request ID. Every request that comes into PAS has a unique ID attached to it. Now, when you restart PAS, the ID resets. But this tells me that all the way from the request log, the access log, all the way down through the session manager log, all the way down to my agent log where my ABL messages are, I can look for that word. And it will be the same all the way down. So it's effectively a trace token, like a Dynatrace, application trace, right? OL, what do you call it? You're tracking your application performance, APM. It's a trace token. So 91 is unique to this one request. And I should be able to track that all the way down. So if I start seeing 500 errors in my log, I'll see this number, this root whatever, and I'll chase down. He got a 500. Why did he get a 500? Well, because my for each whatever gave up the ghost. Oh, okay. Now maybe I can figure out the user that's associated with that and send him a I don't know, gift card, right? Something. Don't hate us, right? Now, of this, what I can tell is root is the web app. That's the PAS app or the PAS web app that serviced the request. I can tell that it was a web transport by the W. If it was REST, that'd be an R. If it was app server, that'd be an A. Nobody uses SOAP anymore, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, yeah. Oh no, shame. No, it's still cool. It's still relevant, bro. And then the 91 here, of course, that's your counter. 91, 96. Remember, it's in hex. So what's 96 in hex? 96, right? I think, isn't it? I don't know. Math, somebody help me, right? But that's useful. That's a useful tidbit there. What else, right? When did the request end? When did it start? So now I can get myself a delta of how long did that request take. Remember, this is from a PAS point of view. So once the Tomcat takes the request and it comes down into the PAS realm, if you will, the Java space for PAS, think about this as the time it took our Java applet to find a connection, find a session on an agent, run it, and then unfold it and serialize it back out. I don't know what the difference is here, 237, 229, so it's milliseconds. Pretty quick, I don't know what it was. Probably hello world, right? Find first customer, amper out, or whatever. Send it out real quick. But it's operating very quick, but that's what you can parse for, and you can extrapolate how long these requests are actually taking. Now, all of that was fine and dandy. That script does have a lot. The OE-JMX script itself has a lot of downsides to it. Right? It's heavy. You got to spin up a JVM all the time. You have to do multiple hits in order to get the right answer. It's just not the best choice, but it's awesome to know that it's there in case it's your only choice. Right? If that's the only tool you have, hopefully you know how to use it, right? So a RESTful style option, there's a REST API that we can call. That's a little bit more efficient, a little bit more easy to use, always available. So these are system agnostic, right? Put it in your browser. System agnostic, doesn't really care. And as well, our REST API is documented in Swagger API, Swagger doc. So you can actually just go into the Swagger interface, test them out. Once you're happy and you like the interaction you're getting, now you can copy and paste those requests into a script and automate that script. Postman, Node.js, cron, whatever you're looking for. Downsides, right? One of the upsides is that, hey, you know what? You can get at this REST API from anywhere. Downside, you can get at this REST API from anywhere. So change the password, update the password, lock down access to this. There was a question before, can I get to these JMX servlets without OE manager put in? Yes, I can get to JMX. Can I get to these without OE manager put in? No. It's oemanager.war that exposes the REST API to the JMX beans. So really, the JMX beans are already there. But the oemanager.war, he's giving you access to it. So make sure you change the password on oemanager.war. Make sure you authenticate all the requests through here. Who runs reverse proxies on their app servers or their web servers or their PAS servers, right? Reverse proxy, right? Don't reverse proxy the OE manager URL. It should only be accessible internal. Don't expose it, only internal. There, now I'm relatively secure. Oh yeah, and Tomcat is not a good password, right? We've all changed, we've all updated it. I have no instances with that username. Yeah, right. So, do your best to lock it down. So if I just open up a browser, go to my machine name, my PAS port, the OE Manager web app URL, now I can ask for, tell me everything you know about applications, the application known as OEPAS1, and then about him, I would like to know his metrics. And that's the style of response you get. Now, I can take that request, or pardon me, that response, and I can, again, send it through JQ, so I get some nice formatting, some nice coloring. I can take that URL and maybe tokenize it. Feed it to Postman, feed it to your other testing endpoint toolkit, monitoring endpoints toolkit, whatever you have. It's just a RESTful API. So as long as you can reach that HTTP endpoint and authenticate to it, and maybe put HTTPS there, you can have all the metrics you want, and they come back really efficiently. So these are examples of the responses that you can get. Again, tell me everything you know about the agents. All right, I got you your agents, and I have this one running. Tell me everything about agent number. If I go back one, where is he? Here, 29402. So tell me everything about agent 29402. Tell me about his sessions. Well, here's all the sessions he has. It's the same information that came out of OEJMX, but I can do this from my bed. I don't have to be SSH'd in. I don't have to be on the VPN or what have you. I just go to the correct URL as long as I can access that URL and be authenticated to it. And these are performant. It comes back very, very quickly. And I can put it into my Postman or whatever, like I mentioned. Okay, I'm just going to run through a couple there. And then this is what I was talking about, that Swagger doc. Has anybody seen this before? Right? You should have seen this before. Swagger being the industry standard of taking a RESTful endpoint and beautifying it so you can test some things out. Out of the box, OE Manager has a Swagger endpoint in it. It may or may not be enabled, but the line of configuration is in there. And if it's not enabled, it's just been commented out. You just remove the comments, restart the web app, and laugh all the way to the bank. And might as well have a demo, right? Let's test the demo gods here. Okay, so this is from our workshop today. This is an AWS instance. And it's just the Hello World or OE PAS1 that comes out of the box. And all I've done is I just went to my instance, and it's running on port 8810. I went to OE Manager, and I'm hitting the Swagger doc. So what do I want to know about this PAS instance? Well, let's see what's interesting in here. Tell me all the applications you have in there. Notice here, is this, we got a couple monitors, but I'll make this a little bigger. That's not too bad. So tell me all the applications you have in there. Now, I've already had to authenticate to hit this URL. So I've already logged in, Tomcat, by the way, don't tell anybody. And if you're listening to this in the future, I've changed it. So I've already logged in, I've already authenticated. So now I can find the API that I want, hit the try it out. Go for it, try it out. Oh, come on. Come on, try it out. I want to try it out. Okay, he doesn't like that one. Go. I'm working without a net here, guys. Let's try. What one will work for us then? I'll tell you what, I know the name of an app. Try it out. Okay. Let's see if it's because I'm incognito. Or incog awesome, as I like to say. No, this one right here. Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, the demo gods are kicking me in the shins right now. You're on the hotel Wi-Fi? Anybody who was in my workshop for the week knows that I never go on the hotel Wi-Fi, except for now. Let's just do this, see if this will fix her. Okay, wonderful, beautiful. Oh, and the truth shall set you free. What was my port? Does anybody remember what the port was? 8810. OE Manager is the app. I put a final slash, and this is not Tomcat. And then we go down to list, try it, there we go, try it out. And now what I can do is if there's any parameters to pass into this, I'll play fill in the blanks. There's none, so it makes it really easy. And I'll just hit the execute, and what it did is it made a call to that RESTful endpoint. And first off, underneath the curl box, I'm gonna see if I can get us some, there we go. Underneath the curl box right here, I can now copy and paste this curl command and maybe write some scripts around it. Cool. All I need to add to it is that authentication portion. If all I wanted to know was the request URL, there it is. I can copy and paste that, put it into Postman or something. And then as we go down, here's the response that I got. So now this is a nicely structured JSON doc. What does it give me? By the way, all of your PAS applications in here, you've got a Peter ABL. And for Peter ABL, he has a web app called Frank, who uses APSV SOAP web app server. You've also got another web app called Peter, who uses APS SOAP web app server. And oh, by the way, there's another ABL configuration in there. This is another app server configuration, ProPath, database sets. Underneath one PAS instance, I'm running at least 2 app server definitions. Separate ProPath, separate database connections, separate agent pools. One for my timesheet app, one for my Peter app. And I think I've got one more here. The default is, there he is, OE PAS1. So there's always one out there that is the name of the instance. If you don't tell PAS anything else, and you say, create me an instance of PAS called OE PAS1, you get an app server definition called OE PAS1. And you will always get a web app called root. You always get that. And so I've added a little bit, worked on a couple things during our workshop. What else is interesting? Well, again, what headers came back, right? What can I expect? Content type of some kind of JSON. Well, it's progress JSON. It's vendor style JSON. Yes?
How does it look like OpenEdge Explorer?
Excuse me?
OpenEdge Explorer, how does it look this one? The configuration browser in OE.
In OE?
Yes.
So go into OEM and see what this looks like?
EE is fine.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Okay, sure. I think I read your mail. Let's go into here. Whoops. Into here. Not Tomcat. And it's not admin either. Ha ha. Yeah. So here's the demonstration, right? I have I have more than one ABL application. I went past it. More than one ABL application running underneath this one PAS instance. What would that look like? I've closed it. What would it look like underneath OEM or OEE? Okay, so that exact same information, I've got one PAS instance running 3 different app server configurations with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 web apps tied to them. So the web apps are your way in. If I'm over here and I'm curl or Chrome or my client app, I've got to come through a web app that's associated with an ABL application. So if I want to run our code, I have to come in through one of the web apps.
How do you restart now one web app? You mentioned you have to simply restart the web app and wow.
And wow, yep, bingo.
How do you start the web app?
Wow. How do we start just one web app?
Yes.
That's a great question. I wish I knew.
You said it. Web app and wow.
And wow. Yeah, well, when you deploy web apps to a running instance, you can tell it to automatically start it. And if PAS is not running, I'll deploy a web app to it, And when PAS starts, it picks up the web app. It picks it up. How do I associate web apps to the ABL? Is that a good question? So as I come in, like for example, we always get root. I always get OEPAS1, or the name of my default service is the name of my PAS instance. So I always got root, OEPAS1. I added a web app called Jim.
I think you can restart your web app via the manager, not the OE manager, but the manager, Tomcat manager.
Oh, I see. Okay. So there's a subtle difference between this question, right? Can I restart my web app using Tomcat manager? Can I restart, unload, uncycle, load my web apps using Tomcat manager? Interesting, this is built on the Tomcat platform. So by rights, if you wanted to, if you were brave, you could take any web app and deploy it under PAS. It's going to work. Should you do it, right? Technically, it will work. Should I do it? I would advise don't, right? This is an app server. Don't put hello world, servlet examples, don't put them under here. It's not what it's meant for. Will it work? Yes, gloriously. But don't do it, right? This is meant for your enterprise application. I shouldn't put games under it, you know what I mean? Other toys. It's meant for app server gatewaying. Now, the subtle difference between any other Tomcat web app that I can just deploy using the Tomcat manager, I can also use this manager here. I can deploy if I wanted to, right here. The subtle difference is our web apps, PAS web apps, we call them the OE-ABL web apps. The difference is it's still a Tomcat web app. It still knows how to do Tomcat things. Tomcat knows how to communicate with it. So when we deploy, it still unzips. It still loads itself into memory. It still communicates with Tomcat. It loads all the Spring security framework. But what it also does is it tailors all of the OpenEdge.properties for the app server. So it knows ProPath, database. My name is Jim. I want to run against OEPAS1. All that extra tailoring, that extra OpenEdge binding stuff, we do when you say deploy here, or if you do tcman deploy from disk. So if you tried to deploy an OpenEdge web app using Tomcat Manager, would it work? Most of it would. You would end up with no ABL configuration. It might start, you might get some Spring stuff, but you won't get any ABL stuff. So if you're deploying an OpenEdge web app, use tcman deploy or this deploy. If you're deploying a different web app, deploy it your way. Just don't do it here, right? This is for OpenEdge stuff. Other questions? Anything exciting? Any stock tips? No? All right. Oh, hey, that's live? Cool. I was trying to go to the next slide. That's awesome. So in here, I now have a list. Where is he now? Where'd he go? Oh, right there. And there's all my applications. So I now have a list of all those applications. So for example, there's Peter, ABL. So what I'll do, and he's in here somewhere, right? Well, there he is right there. I'll copy him out, copy. And then what we'll do is we'll go somewhere where it says, hey, you know that application called app name here? Tell me more about it. Okay. So try it out. And I play fill in the blanks. Peter, ABL. And I hit go. Et ça marche. It works. And so now it gave me the curl command so I can copy and paste that out and rinse, lather, repeat, right? Lather, rinse, repeat all the way to the bank. Copy and paste this stuff in, put it into your Postman, put it into whatever testing scripts. I hear a lot out in the field. My app is a GUI app, so I really don't have a way to test it. Sure you do, right? Even if you're doing app server calls, they're still just HTTP calls. So if you can test HTTP, you can have test suites for your app server code. Yes, you can test. It's not an excuse anymore, right? It's graphical. I can't do automated testing. Yeah, you can. A lot of people say that. I hear it a lot.
Okay, but the web request is just a wrapper around the binary protocol which used to be there.
It is.
How do you come up with the content of the request?
You get to. You know what your content is. What are your users asking?
No, it's a proprietary protocol. Just
Oh, the protocol. Yeah, don't worry about the protocol. Right? You're still just going to do posts and gets to HTTP endpoints. What I would do is switch it into put a web transport. Just enable it for testing. Now at least I know for each works, I know that works, I know that works, and I know it works under load and under scale. I'm still not going to get that app server one-to-one. So you're right from that point of view. Find a way. There's always a way. You can test. Is there anything else down here that I could look at? Anybody want to see anything else while I'm in here? While the demo gods are shining brightly? Let's go back over here. Woo, next slide. All right. So, a lot of shiny things. And now I've mentioned a couple different things too. I've mentioned Postman or scripting or automating your REST calls. Progress Iceberg. If you go to github.com/progress/iceberg, don't worry about the tree main, that just means current version. But there's a whole bunch of tools in here that have been written by some of our internal engineers that they were just using them over and over and over again. So they decided, you know what, let's publish them. We're using them over and over and over with customers. Let's publish them so that anybody can have them. So if you go to github.com/progress/iceberg, one of the scripts in there is OE Manager, and it's actually deployed as part of 12.8 right now. So when you deploy your 12.8, you've got part of Iceberg in there. And I'm still good for time, right? Did I go long? You guys are still interested. You're still here. Let's keep going. I'm on my fourth double cappuccino, so let's keep rolling. But it's all here inside of 12.8, and it's meant to be that replacement. What we hear a lot of from customers is, I really, really miss ASBman query. Okay, OE Manager. The OE Manager script that's in your instance. And as you can see here, anybody recognize this leftmost column? PCT run? Who knows PCT? Right? Gilles. Right? So PCT is part of an OpenEdge deployment. And we know we're standing on it. So we can put in scripts that call PCT to do some things. So in here, what this is meant to do is go off. It's automated using ANT or PCT. And it runs ABL code that communicates with your PAS instance and tries to format the output in a way that's either similar or replaceable to ASBman query. I'm going to spin over, bring up my lovely handy dandy. All right, Vanna, let's go. I'm inside my instance. There he is, right there. So I'm inside of my instance folder. I even went one into the bin folder. This is 12.8. There's oemanager.bat. All right, so there's all, just by hitting go, there's all information that come on now, scroll for me. There we go. All the information that I might be interested in knowing up front. And it even tells me, by the way, you might want to do query or status. Status. Okay, churnity churn, and I get something resembling an ASBman output. Could it be better? Yes. Guess what? It's open source. Make it better. Do we accept pull requests? I knew you were going to say it. Jinx, you owe me a soda. Do we accept pull requests? Now, that's a question. Oleg left. Sorry. Oleg was back there. You had your chance. Yeah, but do we accept pull requests? I would love to see it because I've got some fixes that I would like in there. Health scanner comes with PAS as of 12. Where does it say here? No, it's on the next slide. It's on a couple slides down, but it comes with PAS as of 12.0. It's another web app that you deploy, but it runs more than just a web app. It listens on its own socket. It has its own thread pool. It even though you start PAS and you get your HTTP and other ports, the health scanner has its own side memory, its own side gig, but he's associated with that PAS instance. What he does is he gives you more than just a proof of life. Am I up? Am I down? What are my metrics? He gives you kind of a score. Is this doing well, or is this PAS instance in a degraded state? The interesting part is a 1 is bad. 0 is good. Somewhere between 1 and 0 is your state degrading. So it was 0.5. Kind of wavering, I don't know. But if I hit, for example, the health endpoint, I'm going to get a 200 or a 500. Is it working, true or false? I want to be able to see just a quick summary. So what's my configuration summary? Well, at this point in time, we are looking for doing health checks every 60 seconds. So it's meant to be used in this style, like a full clustering style, to where I can have a whole cluster of PASs, and should one, like this green guy in the middle, start throwing 500s or start showing a degraded score, I can take him out of the rotation, kill all of his agents, do whatever, spin him back up nice and clean and shiny and new, and then put him back into the ALB rotation, in this case, ELB rotation. Upside news. Overall health of your OpenEdge system, there's one in here, right there. I like this part of it. So how's your CPU doing? Is it spiking? How's your system memory, not just PAS memory? So it gets you a lot of cool extras. Downside, you don't get detailed information. It isn't saying these are the procedures that are bloating up your memory, or this is the session that's bloating up your memory. It's just saying you've got a lot of sessions and they're taking up a lot of RAM. But it's giving that degraded score so where you can make a decision, maybe now is the time. It has a JSON output, right? Wow. Yeah, that's great. But it's got a lot of JSON output that it provides, and by default, it displays a heat map. So I can configure the health scanner, and when I go to this heat map, I can already say that, well, it's okay if CPU spikes. It's a small CPU. It's okay if it goes red. Well, I'll weight it less. So when these calculations get made, maybe it doesn't show up red if my CPU is spiking. Maybe it shows up with a little bit less weight. It isn't as red. But I can see green for my CPU at 100%, busy's 100%, memory health, oh, I'm down to 2% memory. Now, again, I don't know. Maybe I'm only consuming 2% of the memory. Maybe red is good. I'd have to read the manual and figure it out, right? What's going on inside here? It's just not right up front intelligible. I can tell you that red things are bad. When you see them and you hover over, it gives you a little bit more detail. If you click, you drill in, it gives you more detail. But behind this, that's all JSON data that's being spat out at you. So again, if you don't like the heat map idea, there's endpoints that you can tickle underneath the health manager, health scanner, and consume those APIs, consume those JSON packets, and build your own solution around it. So the overall recommendations, right? Find a REST API. It's the healthy, modern way of accessing all your data and your performance metrics. One of the easiest things to do is a proof of life. Can I ping the server? Sure. Can I hit the PAS port? Okay. How much life are you looking for? Well, I would like to know, because I'm a progressor, I'm an OpenEdger, I would like to know, are my databases connected? What's my pro path? Maybe what's running persistently in memory. So I'll write a little procedure that does that, and I'll call it ping. And then I'll teach anybody who does health checks out there, yeah, we're using F5 for health checks, we're using whatever to do health checks. Here's my endpoint, it's called /ping, and it's going to send you some data back. It'll send a 200 OK. If that's good, that's great. But the output that comes back, we can actually consume that and we could put it into Dynatrace or Grafana or anybody like that, and we can now get nice little metrics of how often am I seeing, I expect 4 databases, how often am I seeing 3? I expect to see 20 things in RAM, how often am I seeing 50? So I can start doing my own little metrics. But my proof of life that I like is not only can I get to PAS, but is my ABL configured properly? I like to make sure that at any point I can go all the way down to a database record and back. But it can be as simple as hello world too. So REST API is probably your best choice. Using OAJMX, for me, I like to make sure that this is your emergency backup. And if you're going to deploy PAS, don't expose the OE manager, or when you deploy PAS with OE manager, don't expose it to the external world. This is internal only, because once that goes outside the front door, everybody who can get in with Tomcat, they can do whatever they want. Okay? The health scanner, again, this is good for degraded, basically scoring your system. And it also, the other good thing about it is it tracks the operating system too, CPU usage, things like that. It's not very heavy, and it does periodic snapshots of what Tomcat's doing and what the operating system is doing.
Can you turn that off, the OS scanning?
Yes. Can you turn off the OS scanning that the health scanner does? Yes. You can configure everything that it scans for. Maybe you have 50 hard drives. I don't want to scan them all for all their space. Let's just configure just one.
No, whatever I run stuff on Kubernetes, Kubernetes does.
Kubernetes too, right? I don't want to do all this extra scanning on Kubernetes. I just want to know memory maybe and request counts, something like that. Yeah. So what should I monitor? Again, there's that ping. If you enable the REST adapter, you can hit this URL, and all of a sudden you can have a ping-pong response. There's a class that this _OE ping calls. There's a default one, and it's out there in the GitHub repository for the ADE source code. Everybody should have a copy of that. And all that it does is returns blank. But if you put a class of the same name, same package namespace, higher in the ProPath, but it's your code, you can make it return whatever you want. Do I equals 1 to numDBs, right? There's all my databases that are currently connected, right? Show me my ProPath. So, all right, replace ProPath, da-da-dee-doodly, make it into JSON, shovel it out the door. So OE ping, you can customize what it returns. Lovely little doc link there. What else is interesting? The Tomcat incoming thread pool, right? That's using Tomcat Manager to return back that status. OE Manager applications, all of them, get me all of their metrics. Cool. Current agent sessions, you have to specify the agent ID, but there's your list of all those things. What else? Look at the memory, and don't neglect the operating system itself. There's that health scanner as a 12.0, but don't neglect the operating system itself. IO top, VMstat. Nobody uses Task Manager on Linux, right? That's not a thing, because everybody uses Linux, right? If you haven't met me, right? Linux rules the world, right? Windows sucks. But, come on. We eat our own dog food at Progress, right? The MBA dashboard, Merrick is doing a presentation, I think tomorrow, of the MDBA dashboard. So we have all the customers around the world that have our Pro Monitor scripts installed on them. I'm going to do a horrible job of pitching it and selling it, but they capture all the metrics, and they capture PAS metrics. And they ship them home back to Head Shed, and then they wrap it up into a lovely little dashboard that looks kind of like that. Lots of graphs, a lot of prettiness, really, really awesome. So you can see how your, all the good stuff that you've ever seen from Pro Monitor or the MDBA services in the past, transactions, highest queries, highest users, I don't know what else is in there, my BI growth, all of that is on a dashboard that looks like this, including my read errors, my write errors, all that information from PAS will also be included in there, in your MDBA dashboard. So make sure you see Merrick's full-on live and working without a net demonstration. He's going to use the hotel Wi-Fi to show that off. You believe it? That's just crazy talk. One thing I will add here, by the way, Brian Bowman did a great presentation on consuming metrics and making them available to other systems. Not only consuming your logs, right, all the access logs, so HTTP, 200OK, all those things, grab all those, but grab all these metrics from PAS, send them off somewhere else. He was showing Sumo logic. So you take all of your log information, ship it over to Sumo. But then all of his metric information, he was shipping over to Dynatrace. I've done similar projects in the real world also, and they all turn out really, really shiny and nice because there's lots of big numbers, lots of requests, and execs like that. Pretty graphs, right? So, anybody have something that I haven't covered that maybe has interest? I've covered a lot, right? One of the things that I would add up here that isn't up here, Jolokia is a great option for accessing. Jolokia. We'll see if I left my browser open. I was kind of talking about it. There he is. Jolokia. This is a great option for getting at JMX values across the wire. Now, it's not in the manual, right? It's not in the OpenEdge manual. It's not blessed by progress, but it works. It's secure, it's fast, it's pretty darn awesome. Here's an interesting thing. I've put a lot of tools up against PAS in order to get JMX values out of it. I can get Catalina, I can get number of requests, I can get garbage collection counts, how much memory, how much CPU, read JMX beans. Our beans, if I want OpenEdge specific numbers, how much stuff is in RAM, how many temp tables am I don't know, right? Our bean methods are all exec beans. You have to tickle them, you have to tell them to go. Jolokia knows how to do that. A lot of the other ones, Prometheus Exporter, doesn't allow you to do execs unless you code. Out of the box, you can get metrics, no problem, from Prometheus metrics endpoints. But if you need to exec those beans, you have to write a hook for yourself. If you're into writing Java, knock yourself out, it'll work. We'll get rid of that guy. There's the Iceberg link, by the way. GitHub.com, doodly-doodly. And then OpenTelemetry, right? Everybody should be aware that we've added OpenTelemetry output to our ABL runtimes, to PAS itself, as well to the database, to OECC, it's all in there, right? Well, I had somebody say, well, OECC, I can't get my head around it. I can't make it work. Okay, well, it doesn't mean that you can't go into PAS and start OpenTelemetry shipping to an OpenTelemetry server or some other Dynatrace or Grafana or whatever. You can still OpenTelemetry without OECC. And then once OECC, once everything's ironed out and you're through that workflow, then you're dancing. Now you get all the information. Here is the Prometheus JMX exporter. Hook this up to your PAS, and now you have an endpoint that you can scrape. Get all those numbers, ship them, put them into Dynatrace. Okay? That's my time. I've been Chad, not Roy. If you guys know Roy's email address, everybody should, Ellis@, right? Ellis@, send him your love and tell him you miss him. If you want the slides, they'll be up on the PUG site soonish. All right? Thank you very much.